Smiling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it sink or swim.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Arkansas Shrimp Tank post-show wrap-up video. I'm your host Rich Jensen along with my co-host David Sims and our special guest today, Justin Carmody of Conveyor Technology. Every week at the end of the podcast, we like to do a video wrap-up highlighting some of the best things we heard throughout the podcast. If you haven't heard the whole podcast, you can go to arkansas.shrimptankpodcast.com, download the entire podcast, and if you're listening to this and watching this, you've probably already on our YouTube channel. So it was just a really, really great podcast, learned a lot of things, had a lot of good laughs, and one of the things you said, Justin, kind of right in the middle of it, we were asking you about when an employee makes a mistake, because we were talking about your leadership is to really value people. You said something interesting about that makes them more valuable to you, and something to do with $10,000 too, which sounded very.
It does, regardless of the amount of the mistake. Hiring and retaining quality employees is one of the most important things I've found in being an entrepreneur and establishing a long-term business. So that mistake that's just been made is something that I don't want them to make again, and I certainly don't want to shame them. Shame does not teach anybody anything. It just creates hard feelings. So the way I approach it is, you've made this mistake, so you're very unlikely to make it again. And you now have this wisdom. You've learned how easy it is to do it. So instead of somebody else coming along and trying to do the job, they now are more likely to do a better job. So they're more valuable to me now.
And he actually literally said that $10,000 mistake, which I think an employee made,
makes them $10,000 more valuable to me.
But I like the second thing. But if they make it again, now they're more valuable to someone else. Actually, I think I threw that in.
I don't think we've ever had that happen. I don't think we've ever had anybody make this.
And I think the point about not shaming them is so critical.
Oh,
That's just as amazing, because so many people get shamed at work for making mistakes, and it's terrible.
Some of the things people say to their employees, I have a great employee now working for me, and I got him simply because of the way he was talked to in his previous company.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, during our critical thinking segment, you've been in business for 23 years, highly successful business, and you learn more about that by watching the podcast. So I really encourage you to go watch that.
Or you could listen to the podcast.
You can't watch it. Yeah, but I guess you could watch it on the screen, but listen to the podcast and watch the video. Thanks. But I asked you, what was the number one business critical thinking skill that you've learned over that 23 years of experience has taught you? And you said something really great about the customer.
It's to listen to the customer, and not only listen to them, but meet their needs. You can make a lot of money meeting people's needs, and people surprisingly have a very difficult time getting good service. So you can carve yourself a way of making a living in this world by giving good service, and it starts with listening to what the need is.
Yeah. And that whole theme of service ran throughout the podcast. Right. It is serving your employees, serving your customers, and putting their interests first. And it's one of your core values as a company that we read about. Now, in our Plead the Fifth segment, which we had a lot of fun with, man, I think we tied you. I think it was the first time we tied. First time we didn't get shellacked, so we asked you some tough questions. But you said something, we were asking you about the worst kind of customer. You said something that's interesting to what you guys do and how you approach that.
Well, I said the worst kind of customer is the one who's not buying.
Oh, that's right. The one who's not buying, yeah.
But what I said was that we have learned to go where we're celebrated, not tolerated. Driven people, entrepreneurial type people, or salesmen who is very well motivated would tend to knock on a door that's not open and just go after it until he's wasted so much time he hasn't produced anything. What we found is go where there's opportunities.
Yeah.
And one of my salesmen calls that ride the horse that's running. So we're going after the business where it's at, and we're going after opportunities.
And where you have favor, you said.
Yeah, go where we have favor.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A moment of favor is worth years of labor.
Wow.
When you walk in the door
Guy's
and
a
somebody
poet.
just likes you, when someone just likes you, there's just that connection. And I find that when you're God-centered, that a lot of that happens. months.
Yeah, that's
that's
good.
good.
That's really good.
Well, Justin, we really want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Lots of good pearls. I encourage you, go download the podcast, listen to the entire 40 minutes. But
You can
if
watch
someone-
the podcast too if you
That's
want
right. Hey, if someone wanted to get a hold of Conveyor Technologies, there's a potential customer, or I think you mentioned you're actually hiring right now. So what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
ConveyorTechnology.com, and that's with a Y.
Okay. No phone number there. You don't want to give out your personal cell phone number.
800-847-1726. And you can email me personally at jcarmody@ctiusa.net.
to. J Carmody, that's JCARMODY.
Yes, at
Right.
ctiusa.net. I'd love to
Great.
get your email.
Yeah.
And after that spelling lesson, I want to thank you so much for tuning into the post-show wrap-up. I encourage you again, listen to the entire podcast at arkansas.shrimptankpodcast.com. Until then, have a safe week. Be sure to tune in next week when we'll have Jim Carr. He's another successful local business owner with lots of pearls of wisdom, consults to Inc. 5000 people as well as Global Fortune 500 people. So you won't want to miss it. Until then, remember, to become a shark, we all start out as shrimp.